Hello and welcome to Practical Research 2. This time, we are now exploring quantitative research. So I am your teacher for this course. My name is Rodney Giberson V. Garcia. I'm your friendly guide and your teacher throughout this course. I'm very excited to teach you and at the same time learn from you. You can find me you can file your queries to my Gmail, which is rodneygarcia25@gmail.com. Some reminders before we start our course. Each group must provide a sliding folder for your research paper. You must submit your outputs on time. And if you think that you cannot meet the deadline, just say it to me in advance. I can give you consideration given that we have limited resources such as internet connectivity and so on. Next, I hope we can develop a proactive habit. When we say proactive habit, we must think in a way that we are responsible in everything that we do. When we think that way, we are trying to better manage ourselves. So we must think proactively. Another one is to build. I hope we can build a positive atmosphere within your research team. I already divided the class into groups, and it's the task of the leader to see to it that the members are cooperating. And it's the task of the members to do your assignments or your tasks well and on time so that you won't stress your leader. And if there are still some problems within your research team, don't be afraid to approach me. And the last reminder is don't be afraid to ask if you do not know something or if you are in doubt. So some notes about this course. Quantitative research or practical research 2 helps you develop your critical thinking and problem solving skills, as well as your writing and reading skills through a production of quantitative research. So you're expected to come up with a research study at the end of this course. Second one, this course lets you experience the research process, the whole package, from identifying a problem in the society, to coming up with your research title, to reading your literature, to proposing your titles, to defending your titles in the end. So I hope we can do that. Let's try to do that and see to it that you get to learn along the way. And the last one, this course also promote collaboration among different individuals, your group mates specifically. And of course, this course would help you develop your love for reading, writing, and sharing of information. And with that, let's now start our discussion with the properties, definition of quantitative research. So what is quantitative research exactly? I have here a simple illustration of what quantitative research is. So here is a famous cartoon character. You know him by the name Garfield. So Garfield is holding a magnifying glass. And what do you think is Garfield doing? So Garfield is trying to investigate. So if I can compare quantitative research, it's more of investigating something. In an investigation, isn't it that you follow a procedure so that you can come up with a solution, and then from that solution we solve the problem, we solve the crime scene. So that's your quantitative research in a simple illustration. So to be more technical, this is a definition given by Tornillo and Clamor Tornillo. I find this very concise and at the same time effective when it comes to defining what quantitative research is. So Tornillo and Clamor Tornillo said that quantitative research is a systematic empirical investigation of social phenomena using tools of mathematics. So let's try to let's try to chunk it so that we can better digest that definition. So the first one is that quantitative research is systematic, which means it follows a step-by-step process. It follows a certain procedure. The second one is that quantitative research is empirical or is an empirical investigation. From the word empirical, this means that we are investigating or trying to come up with set of evidence, of observation, evidence, prueba or proof. So that's empirical investigation. For the third one, we have social phenomena. Of course, what are we trying to investigate? Phenomena or events that are related to our society. May kabuluhan ba yung research mo sa ating komunidad, in our society? So that's social phenomena. And the last one, tools of mathematics. This is why it's called quantitative research in the first place, because we are trying to investigate a social phenomena, and we use tools of mathematics as our weapon to investigate it. So what could be these tools of mathematics? I'll explain to you later. So in quantitative research, you might be confused, or you might be saying that quantitative research has no relevance in your life. But in reality, quantitative research already penetrated your life, because you are surrounded by it at the moment. The way you are seeing me now, that's because of quantitative research. That's a product of technology. That's a product of research. So in quantitative research, if you conducted surveys already when you were in junior high school, that's a manifestation of quantitative research. If you find some advertisements, or if you watch advertisements on TV and that advertisement said this shampoo was clinically proven to be effective in fighting dandruff, then that's a manifestation of quantitative research also. In news, you might have heard of some news about surveys, political ratings or trust ratings. That's another manifestation of quantitative research. And of course, the most concrete one of all, research studies found in your journals. I believe that you're already familiar with research journal or research studies found in journal publications, since you already did your qualitative research back when you were in grade 11. So this is what I'm saying a while ago. Quantitative research uses tools of mathematics. These tools of mathematics are in fact quantitative methods. When we say quantitative methods, these are techniques used in collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data. So one technique that we often use in quantitative research is no other than survey questionnaire, survey questionnaire. So that's one quantitative method, especially in terms of collecting your data. In terms of analyzing your data, we use a branch of mathematics which is called statistics. So if you listen to your statistics teacher well, if you learn in that subject well, it pays that you know your statistics, because this will make your life in quantitative research easier. So some features of quantitative research are the following. Quantitative research addresses problems that require quantification. When we say quantification, we are measuring things. This is why it's called quantitative research in the first place, because we are measuring things. Quantify, numbers. Why do we need to measure things, sir? This is because quantitative research is based on two philosophies. We have your empiricism and positivism. These two philosophies both state that knowledge should be based on evidence. This is why empiricism and positivism are the guiding philosophies of quantitative research. It requires evidence. And what evidence do we need in quantitative research? Numbers. How do we get those numbers? Through measuring. And the next one, in quantitative research is deductive in nature. When we say deductive in nature, it goes from general to specific. One example is you start first with a theory or a hypothesis, and from that theory or hypothesis, you can now guide your current study, your small study. Say for example, you are trying to study the learning styles of students. One theory that you can search a lot of theories about learning styles. One theory is from the learning styles of Dunn and Dunn. That can be an applicable theory which you can use in your small study. So from that theory, you may apply it to your specific study. And the last one, quantitative research follows the scientific method. This is an example or an illustration of what scientific method is. So we already know, or you've already encountered the scientific method when you were in junior high school. We start first by observing our environment so that we can get our research problem. From that research problem, we now study articles. We now read some journals or related studies that will help us better understand our topic. From those readings, we can now formulate our framework. We can now select the theory that is most applicable to our study. And from that framework, we now design our methodology. Who will be your respondent? What kind of design will you use? Will it be a descriptive design, correlational design, causal comparative, or experimental? Where will you conduct that study? What's the sampling method that you will use? What else? What are the tools that you intend to use in your study? What are the statistical tools that you need to use in your study also? And those are your methodology, or that's your methodology. After designing your methodology, you can now collect your data. After collecting your data, you can now analyze it, and using statistics, sorry, that should be letter T, not data. It became British already. After analyzing your data, you can now make your conclusion and recommendation. So from your conclusion and recommendation, you need also to mention the limitation of your study. From those limitations of your study, you can come up with another research, with a new research. That's why the scientific method follows a cyclical process, just like the figure here. Next one, we now go to the kinds of quantitative research. Of course, there are many kinds of quantitative research, and it varies from one author to another, from one book to another. What I'll show you are the most common kinds of quantitative research. The first one is your descriptive research. When we say descriptive research, it seeks to describe what is X. And I'm not talking about the movie. That's not what this is different. When we say descriptive research, we describe what is X, what you are trying to investigate, the variable that you're trying to investigate. In other words, you're trying to describe the current status of the variable that you are studying. Say, for example, you want to study the study habits of senior high school students. So you just get their response through a survey questionnaire. You run that you run the data through your software, through statistics, and there you have it, the study habits of senior high school students. You're just describing it. Another example would be, what could be the stress coping strategies of students? That's still descriptive research. You can also try to see the most common attitude of parents toward modular distance learning. So that's another suggestion for a descriptive research. So if you try to ask me, descriptive research is by far or relatively the easiest among the other types of research because you're just describing something. In correlational research, we attempt to determine or we try to see if there is a relationship between two or more variables. Say, for example, you want to study, or you want to see if there's a relationship between weekly allowance and academic performance. Pwede ba na yung mga, pag mas mataas bang allowance mo, mas mataas rin bang grade mo? Does it follow like that? If you want to study that, correlational research is the most appropriate design for you. But of course, if you want to study that, it should not be this year since you do not have your weekly allowance. The next one is, okay, so before we go with the next kind of research, we now go to we have to identify or we have to discuss two kinds of relationship in correlational research. This is your positive relationship and negative relationship. In positive relationship, there is a direct relationship, meaning as values of X increases, values of Y also increases. As values of X decreases, values of Y also decreases. Say, for example, the relationship between exercise and burned calories. As you exercise more, or the more you exercise, the more calories you burn. So that's positive relationship. That's a direct relationship. Another, attendance and performance. The lesser is your attendance in my class, the lesser could be your performance. That's still positive relationship. Another, or the next kind of relationship is negative relationship. This time, it's the opposite of positive relationship. Instead of having a direct relationship, negative relationship has an inverse relationship. Magkabaliktad. So as values of X increases, values of Y decreases, or vice versa. For example, the relationship between immunity and sickness. It could be that the better is your immunity, the lower your chance of getting sick. So that's an inverse relationship. That's a negative correlation. Next one, the relationship between smoking and years to live. The more you smoke, the lesser years you have to live. So those are your two kinds of correlations. So, question, what would happen if you conducted a correlational research and you found out that there is no relationship between X and Y? Is it still a result? What do you think? Yes, it's still a result. It's still relevant. May impact pa rin yun. It could be that there are other variables that might have affected or that you haven't investigated yet. So it's still a result. The next The next kind of research is causal comparative, which is also known as ex post facto research. Causal comparative is also known as ex post facto research. In causal comparative research, we're trying to compare groups of people to see if there is a cause and effect relationship between the independent variable and dependent variable. Say for example, we have this one. You want to see if there's a difference between the alertness level of those students in the alertness level between students who had breakfast and those students who did not have their breakfast. So you try to group your students, yung mga nag-umagahan at mga hindi nag-umagahan. And then you try to give them a test, an alertness level test. So that kind of study falls under causal comparative research. Did you try to compare? Yes, that's why it's called causal comparative research. The next one is another scenario would be comparing the study habits between male and female senior high school students. That's still causal comparative research because you're trying to compare their study habits. Nagko-compare ka. Comparative research. Okay, let's try this one. You might be wondering what's independent variable and dependent variable. When we say independent variable, this variable changes from one respondent to another. Their height is different. Your height is different from me. Your political, your religious affiliation is different from me. The score of your classmate is different from you. So that's your change variable. It changes. So the next one is your dependent variable. This variable is affected by the change that happened in your independent variable. This is why dependent variable is sometimes called outcome variable. Again, dependent variable is affected by the change that happened with the independent variable. Let's try to figure out what kind of variables are these two. We have an illustration here. It says number of attendance may affect academic performance. So number of attendance is your independent variable and your academic performance is your dependent variable. You can see here that academic performance depends whether you are attending your classes or not. So I hope you learned your independent and dependent variable. Let's now go with the last kind of research, which is the most complicated of all, but it gives you a better result or a more reliable result. This is your experimental research. In experimental research, yes, you perform an experiment. You try to test a hypothesis. You try to give the participants a treatment, a product, a new thing. You try to group the students into two groups randomly, the control group and the experimental group. The experimental group receives that new product or that new treatment, while the control group does not receive anything at all. And in experimental research, the researcher needs to control everything so that no other variables can affect the study. So say for example here, this is one example of an experimental research. So teacher Anna noticed that her students in her 130 class are often bored, sleepy. So they have low alertness level. So what she did was to come up with a new way to help them be alert in her class. So she divided her class by section or randomly. So one group A is experimental, group B is control. In experimental research, or in the first group, she tried to test first their initial alertness level. And then she found out that it's low. Naku, bored sila. Very sleepy. So what she did was to let the students eat calamansi before her class. Then after eating the calamansi, she tested them again. She tried to collect their alertness level. So she found out that, oh, nag-spike. Naging alert sila after eating calamansi. She now tried to compare the data taken from Group A to the data taken from Group B. And she found out that yes, giving calamansi can increase the alertness level of students. So this simple and humorous study is experimental in design. So let's try to recall your 4 kinds of research through storytelling. You may want to identify what kind of research was used in the following. Let's go to the first scenario. So in the first scene, the teacher tried to determine the average BMI of teenagers in their area. Let's say, for example, Ujawan. And she found out that the average body mass index, or BMI, of teenagers is 27, which means they are overweight. So she said that, oh, the BMI of students, the average BMI of teenagers here in Ujawan is 27, meaning most of them are overweight. What kind of research was used? The research, or this research, is called descriptive research because the researcher only describes the BMI, or body mass index, of her respondents. Now, that researcher is still wants to investigate something. She still wants to investigate something. Maybe she said that maybe those who have more income are more overweight than those who have lesser income, which is, if you think it's more logical. Pag may pambili ka, siguro mas marami kang kinakain. So she wants to study that. She wants to get proof or evidence. So she found out that yes, there is a positive relationship. Pag mas maraming pera, mas maraming ang pambili ng pagkain, mas maraming kinakain. So there's a positive relationship. What kind of research was used? So that research is called, or is, a correlational research. The next one. Now, this researcher tried to group the respondents by gender. And she found out that there is a difference in their BMI. Yung mga, the male teenagers are more overweight, or are overweight compared to girls who are normal in their BMI. So when you're trying to compare groups of individuals, you are conducting, yes, causal comparative research. And for the last scenario, you divided your respondents. The researcher tried to divide her respondents into 3 groups, yung mga overweight. Group A receives no treatment, walang ginagawa lang. Status quo, control group. Group B tried to exercise twice a week. Group C exercises twice a week, and then they drink a product that would help them lose weight. And she found out that Group C exhibited the most dramatic weight loss out of the 3, meaning that this product can help with weight loss if it is partnered with exercise. So what do you think is this kind of study? What kind of research is this? Yes, it is called, or this is, an experimental research. And for my last topic, the importance of quantitative research in our daily life and across many fields. Actually, quantitative research is relevant. It has been there for many centuries. It is the reason why we are improving by the minute. Let's try to look at the different fields and how quantitative research helped them. In the field of politics, governance, and public administration, quantitative research is very useful, especially in conducting political survey. If you can recall, the presidential election or senatorial elections, there are some surveys conducted who can be at the top, who would be the winner. That's your political survey. So that's a product of quantitative research. Census is also a product of quantitative research. Determining the impact of government programs such as your 4Ps, effective bang 4Ps, in alleviating poverty in the Philippines. So you may want to conduct quantitative research. In the field of business, businesses can collect data from their consumers. Do they like this new product? Do they like it? Do they like its taste? Do they like its flavor? Its a scent? Its a texture? So from those information, the business can revise or renew its product. And quantitative research is also used in econometrics. When we say econometrics, it's your GDP or GNI. When we say GDP, your gross domestic product, and GNI, gross national income. In other words, quantitative research helps us see if our economy is booming or not. Quantitative research is also used in studying environmental issues such as deforestation, such as if it's really another would be if dolomite is really the solution in cleaning the Manila Bay. So you may want to conduct quantitative research on that. Another is developmental studies. Quantitative research is used in developmental studies when they develop a product or model to help the community. In the field of education, we give tests such as NCAI and NAT. That's one application of quantitative research. Bakit kayo nag-NCAI? Bakit kayo nag-NAT? So that we can see if you are ready for college, so that we can see if you learned something or not. That's one application of quantitative research. In the field of sociology, sociologists will try to see the trends, the common behavior of students. Say for example, what could be their common behavior when using social media, what kind of sites do they visit, what kind of videos do they often view. So that's looking at the behavior of groups of people. That's one product of quantitative research. In the field of psychology, psychologists develop tests so that they can better understand the behavior and mental processes of individuals. So we have your IQ test, EQ test, social quotient test, or your SQ test, and so on. To summarize, before we end, we found out that quantitative research is a systematic investigation of a social phenomena using tools of mathematics. We found out that there are 4 kinds of research, and they differ according to their design, how they approach their research problem. We also found out that research is really important in our lives. It helps us better understand our society by producing knowledge and product that can guide us. And to end my discussion, here is a quote taken from Charles Kettering, and he said that quantitative research means that you do not know and you are willing to find out. So I find this quote very very insightful, because a good researcher requires curiosity and the drive to learn. So if you are passionate about your research study, if you put your effort into it, then you are surely be able to come up with a research study at the end of this course. And of course, yes, you will be proud of it and you will learn something out of it. So with that, thank you for listening and I hope you learned well. Sorry for some inconveniences. I hope we can see each other next time. Stay safe and do amazing things today. Bye-bye.